Welcome to Knowledge Nuggets. Let's learn together. The end of apartheid. Nelson Mandela's incredible journey. Hey, history explorers. This week, we're jumping into an incredible story of courage and change in South Africa. Let's explore how a system called apartheid ended and how two leaders helped bring freedom to everyone. First, let's see where we're at on the map. South Africa sits at the very bottom tip of the continent of Africa. It's a big, beautiful country surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean on one side and the Indian Ocean on the other. It has sunny beaches, wide grasslands, and tall mountains like the Drakensberg. Many different people live there, including Black South Africans, white South Africans, and others. For many years, South Africa had an unfair policy called apartheid. The word apartheid comes from Afrikaans, a language spoken in South Africa, and it means apartness. Starting in 1948, the white government made laws to keep racial groups separate and to give white people most of the power, even though they were a small part of the population. In a practical sense, apartheid looked like this. Black people, who were the majority, had to live in special areas called townships or homelands, far from the nice parts of cities where white people lived. Signs on parks, beaches, buses, and even bathrooms said whites only or non-whites only. Black and white people couldn't marry each other or even sit together on a bench. Black people had to carry special passbooks everywhere, like an ID card proving where they were allowed to be. If they didn't have the right papers, they could be arrested. This racial discrimination hurt Black South Africans a lot. They had to register with something called the Race Classification Board, which decided what race you were: white, black, colored, or Indian. Black people weren't allowed to vote in elections, so they had no say in the government. Their schools were separate and often had fewer books, older buildings, and less money than white schools, so education was limited. Many Black families worked hard in low-paying jobs, like in mines or on farms owned by white people, and they couldn't live where they wanted or travel freely. It felt like being told you were less important just because of the color of your skin. In the 1970s, a brave leader named Steve Biko stood up against this. He led the Black Consciousness movement, which taught Black people to be proud of who they were and to believe in their own strength. Black is beautiful, he said, encouraging everyone to see their worth and stand together. Biko organized protests and spoke out loudly. His ideas inspired students and young people to challenge apartheid. Sadly, the government saw him as a threat, and he was arrested and died in police custody in 1977. But his movement kept the fight alive and woke up many hearts. Another prominent figure was Nelson Mandela. He joined the African National Congress, or ANC, and first tried peaceful protests like marches, strikes, and boycotts. He looked to Mahatma Gandhi from India for inspiration. Gandhi had used non-violent ways to fight for freedom, but when the government kept cracking down and even banned the ANC, Mandela and others decided they needed stronger action. In 1961, he helped create Umkhonto we Sizwe, which means Spear of the Nation in the Xhosa language. It was the armed wing of the ANC. They planned sabotage attacks on empty government buildings and power stations to fight back without hurting people at first. Mandela went underground to avoid arrest and traveled secretly to other African countries to get support and training. But in 1962, he was caught near Howick, South Africa. He was charged with leaving the country illegally and organizing strikes. Later, in the Rivonia trial, he and others faced more charges for sabotage. In 1964, Mandela was sentenced to life in prison. He spent 27 long years behind bars, mostly on Robben Island, breaking rocks in a quarry. Even in prison, he kept studying and inspiring others. Things started changing in the late 1980s. Frederick Willem de Klerk became president of South Africa in 1989. He saw that apartheid was hurting the country. Other nations around the world were boycotting South Africa, the economy was struggling, and protests were growing stronger. De Klerk believed it was time for a new path of peace and fairness. He began negotiating with the ANC. In 1990, he repealed many apartheid laws, unbanned the ANC and other groups, and, after secret talks, released Nelson Mandela from prison on February 11, 1990. Mandela walked out free after 27 years, with the whole world watching. Mandela and de Klerk worked together through tough negotiations to end apartheid completely. They talked about building a new South Africa where everyone could vote and have equal rights. In 1993, they shared the Nobel Peace Prize for their brave work in bringing peace and democracy. Finally, in 1994, South African President de Klerk allowed the country's first free elections where all races could vote. Nelson Mandela became South Africa's first black president. It showed that apartheid was truly ending. Mandela chose de Klerk as his deputy president to help guide the country together in a government of national unity. What an amazing story of hope. From apartness to togetherness, South Africa showed the world that even the toughest walls can come down when people stand up for what's right. Let's check on your learning with these 5 quick questions. Question 1. Who was South Africa's first black president? Nelson Mandela. Great job! Question 2. Who allowed free elections in South Africa for the first time? Frederick Willem de Klerk. Question 3. In what year was Nelson Mandela elected President of South Africa? In 1994. Nice work! Question 4. What is the Afrikaans word for the system that used to keep whites and blacks segregated in South Africa? And what does it mean in English? Apartheid, which means apartness in English. Question 5. What were Nelson Mandela and de Klerk awarded for their work in ending apartheid? They were given the Nobel Peace Prize. Great job, explorers! Make sure you keep learning about history. You're the future leaders who can make the world better. See you next time!